So, welcome Anouk, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ray. Hello, everybody. Thanks for listening to this lecture series from NewMR. Let me see if it works, if I click to the next slides. Yes, all right. So, thanks for joining this session about online community VIPs. Now, you might wonder, what is she talking about? VIPs in communities? Well, in this session, I will talk about how we get the most out of our community participants in a way they can become your VIP. But do communities actually have very important participants? Think about your last qualitative discussion for a moment. It can be a community or maybe a focus group. And think about it again. Can you identify any participants that were extremely important for you, more important than others? And if so, who were they? And how could you identify them? And how to collaborate with them? Is it different? What are the results? Well, you see there are a lot of questions we can ask ourselves here, and we're going to answer them in the next 40 minutes. Let me briefly introduce myself. So I'm Anouk. I'm a part of the innovation team of Insights Consulting, and I'm based in the Netherlands. My role is to innovate our research community solutions. And I work on topics like mobile communities, gamification, and something that we call co-researchers, where we ask our participants to become our co-researcher. Now, these are all techniques that we use to get the most and the best out of our participants, that we get the best data possible. And we use these techniques both for short and long-term communities. Now, what are these communities about? Let me quickly give you an introduction. A research community, or an MROC, how it is often called in the research scene, is an online closed platform where you invite people that all share a strong interest in a topic or a brand, and you collaborate with them for a certain period, and you use it for qualitative research purposes. Now, we see those consumers are more as an advisor or a consultant for the company. And that's why we refer to these communities as consumer consulting boards. Now, a research community has 4 key ingredients. The first one is the number. We always work with a relatively small number of people, between 50 and 150 people. This number is big enough for us to draw meaningful conclusions and for the moderator to keep the overview, but small enough to create a real group feeling among those participants. Secondly, the goal. Well, the goal here is to get insights, and it can be on the routines of consumers when you're developing new products or services, or more towards the end of the funnel to optimize existing ones in the market. What about the duration? Well, it actually depends on the goal of the community. If it's a big objective, then it can be a long-term community for a year or even more than that. If it's a smaller objective, then you can already set up a community for a couple of weeks. And so both can be both used for long-term purposes. Then it's really rooted in the business process of the company, and it's used for multiple projects, or it can use more on a short-term basis for a, and it's related then to a specific project. Now the fourth characteristic is about the profile, and this is a very important one. Because in order for these collaborations to be really successful, we need to work with the right people. Who is on the board? Well, we did a lot of research on research here, and we saw that the participants that bring most insights in the discussions are those that have a higher topic or brand identification. Let me give you one example. When you do a community, for example, with a brand as Ben & Jerry's, and the goal is to collaborate on future marketing plans for the next year, we prefer to work with people that either just love to eat ice cream and are crazy about the Ben & Jerry's brand. So we invite people that are interested in the topic, and that makes it interesting for us as researchers to talk to them and to work with them. Now, this is the most important condition to recruit the right people. And then once these ideal participants start participating in your community, the contributions of members can still differ significantly in regards to quality as well as quantity. And we increasingly see a higher diversity within communities. I mean, more and different people start collaborating in this environment, and we see that the method is really going mainstream. Well, and that's a good thing, because this only increases the validity of this method. But then the question is, what different types do we actually have in our community once they are fully screened and invited onto our community? And how can we motivate them to become a better member and maybe even identify that VIP person? Well, in order to answer this last question, we set up a study together with the University of Maastricht, and we did a segmentation study to identify different member types in such a community. In this study, and by the way, this is the first time that we present the results, so you get a premiere right now. We analyzed the comments and the threads and the member profiles of our community. And for those of you that might not know that, threads are community discussions. Now, what we've seen is that different member types are similar to visitors that go to a festival or a music concert. Because here you have people that always try to be in front of the stage, and people that prefer to stay a little bit in the back, that they might have more space to dance. And you see that the same thing is actually happening in our communities. Well, to identify these segments, we did a cluster analysis. And here you can see the overview of all member types, and we will discuss them in depth in a minute. Now, here the clustering is based on the three most important variables, which are participant intensity, which is the number of posts that one member did. Secondly, cognitive efforts. This is the ability of a member in terms of reasoning within a post, and we coded this one with a content analysis. And the third variable is the thread dynamic, so the flow of information from early to the late moments within a thread. Okay, so who are these profiles that we identify? Well, you already see here the first one, and that's the community leader. This is the smallest segment that we have found, but it's an important one, so we mustn't ignore this one. Then, secondly, we have the insightful initiator, and this scores the highest of all types on cognitive effort. The third one is the middle messenger, and this is actually the largest part of your community. Then we have the sporadic. It scores relatively or the lowest on cognitive effort. And finally, the reflective repeater. Now, we also found a sixth one, and this is the lurker. And this person doesn't post anything, so I put it more on the right, because every community deals with those people. And the key reasons for them not being active is that they either don't have enough time anymore, or they expected a different experience and they missed some information to be a good member. But for now, we focus on the moderation flow of a thread and how to get the most out of these 5 profiles. So let's find out a bit more what these 5 profiles are about. And for that, we go back to the concert crowd again. So imagine that the moderator is on stage. They are giving a big show. Now, who is in your crowds? Okay, so the first one is the community leader. And this is typically someone that is always in front of the crowds. And then the community, this person is also the first to post to the community threads. And in community language, we call this a FIPO. It's the first poster. This person has a very high level of cognitive effort. And although this segment is only 1%, so it's really small, and quantitative people would say it's not a significant segment, but it is still a very important one. Especially also in your motivation, because they can act as a role model in your community for their peers when you talk about their attitudes, their behavior. They post very often, and they use a lot of positive emotions. This person is also more open-minded. And really sees this community as an opportunity to interact with others. And we know this based on the high amount of community pages that they look like. So they are also very interested in how other members are responding. What else is there to say? Well, they score exceptionally high in terms of certainty. When you start looking at the words that these people use, they just have a clear view of what they want. Now, in terms of motivation, recognition is the most effective way. The community manager here needs to give the leader the credits for their hard work. And one way to do that is by making them an official co-moderator of the community. Now, I'll explain more about this technique later on in this presentation. So that's the first one. Who else is in the crowd? Well, next we have the insightful initiator. And when we think about festival visitors, this person also stands in front, sometimes even sits on the neck of somebody. You know, they always have the best view of the stage. And in the community, this member type posts also very often and is early in the dynamics of the thread. And although only 10% of the members are these insightful initiators? This member type builds the basis of every online research community. A dominant characteristic is that they have the highest cognitive efforts. This person likes to think a lot about a topic, providing creative solutions, and we also see that their arguments are supported by function words of causations. For example, because, hence, effects, and their emotional sentiment is also the most positive one among all member types. Now, how to motivate this person? It's actually the same as for the community leader. Give them recognition and give them status in your community. They're very sensitive to that. Okay, who else is in the crowd? Well, then there is the middle messenger. When we think about these festival visitors, this person is a bit further in the crowd. Not in a really bad spot, but it's also not a very good one either. And as the name suggests, it's actually right in the middle. And in the community, this cluster is also the largest among the active members, almost half. So it's really the backbone of your community. Well, the most interesting characteristic is that this member is well, around average on almost every dimension. And in contrary to the leader, the first segment, this person lacks the same level of certainty. And when we see what function words they use more tentative expressions. For example, perhaps, maybe, I guess. So how to motivate them? We need to encourage them. We need to make them feel more comfortable to share their own point of view. And even if this means that it contradicts the opinions given by the insight initiators, because this contradiction is very important for your qualitative conclusion. How to do this? Well, give an example on how to approach a question, or give them the task to play the devil's advocate, for example. All right, so the fourth segment is a more difficult one. It's called the sparse sporadic, a very mysterious name. Well, at concerts, these people may disappear in the crowd. They cannot see anything at all because they stand behind a very tall, big guy. You really hate that when it happens, right? Well, in a community, this cluster has also an overall very low value from an economic point of view. Participation is low and cognitive effort is low. So you might think, okay, let's ignore these people, but actually it's still a very interesting segment because there is so much upward potential here. What's their problem? Well, it's the most important problem is that they just cannot identify themselves with the community yet. They post a lot of I in their wordings, and yeah, this results in that they don't always know what is exactly asked of them and how they should contribute. So they are very insecure on the contributions that they make. So we can solve this problem, right? How should we motivate them? Give them a lot of personal attention. As a moderator, you should address that issue and approach these people directly, and just make clear what is desired of them. for example, through a direct message. So we already have identified 4 profiles. What about the last one, which we call the reflective repeater? Well, at the concerts, they usually arrive when the opening act has already started. So they are at the back of the crowd. Can you imagine? They are far away from the stage. They try to put their mobile phones in the air, hoping that they can catch a glimpse of the act happening. Those are the reflective repeaters. And in the community, they are also already a bit late, posting at the end of a thread when a lot of arguments have already been mentioned. Well, what happens? Well, as the name indicates, they start repeating what other peers have already mentioned before. So it's a posting in a form of a thread summary. But this actually is very interesting because it presents an opportunity for you as a moderator. And additionally, not only summarizing what has been said, you also want them to add a personal interpretation as well. And by implementing these actions, moderators can increase the novelty of ideas and can really add an extra layer to the qualitative analysis. So really challenge their reflection so they can also add their own point of view here. So these are the 5 profiles, and now we know that not all members that are recruited are the same. What does this mean for us moderators? What do we need to think about when moderating the discussion? Well, as the discussion evolves, we usually have 3 moments of moderation. After we have the topic launch, we have an informal moderation, a formal moderation, and an informal moderation squared. What are they exactly? Let me start with the formal moderation. This is an intervention moment meant to summarize and interpret the discussion. And this moment usually happens around 30 posts. Why then? Well, we see that then there is a saturation level occurring of the on-topic arguments. You know, everything has been said. It's the same as you will have in an offline focus group. The second one, everything is still relatively new. When you have the 10th focus group, nothing new is said anymore. So that's the formal moderation. What about the one before, the informal moderation? That's used as a moment to ask additional questions, steer the discussion a bit, and encourage them to continue. And this usually happens at around 15 posts, so halfway. Now, to make sure that we can draw a good conclusion around that number 30, we really need that informal moderation. Now, after the formal moderation, you can always ask for additional stories to nuance or to validate the interpretation or the summary made from the moderator. And that's what we call informal moderation squared. And that's we mean by that it can continue for a longer time. So that explains the squared. So you now know the intervention moments. How does this relate to the 5 profiles? Well, a couple of tips to integrate them. First of all, give recognition to the community leader and the insightful initiator, and do this during the informal moderation. Secondly, make the middle messenger feel comfortable to share their point of view and not only adapt to the insightful initiators, but also share their own perspective, and also do this already in the informal moderation intervention. The next tip I would like to give is about the sparse sporadic. We really need to give them some personal attention, show them what type of contributions are desired, and my recommendation is to do that in a private message. Then we have those reflective repeaters. Trigger them to interpret the discussion and really reflect on them, and challenge them to do this during your formal moderation. And while doing so, also stimulates the interaction between the middle messenger and the insightful initiator to make sure that you have enough contradiction within your discussion. So what does this all mean for your analysis? Well, just integrate it. Integrate it in the process. Start analyzing already at the moment of your formal moderation. Use segments like the reflective repeater to validate your conclusion at the end. And by implementing these actions, moderators can increase the novelty of insights and ideas. It can really help you. So you see that different members have different motivations, and we as moderators can get the best out of them. Okay, so that's all interesting, but I mentioned in the beginning something about VIPs. What about them? Is that then the community leader? Is it the insightful initiator? Well, not necessarily, because we need all those 5 member types to create the thread dynamics, not or the initiator. And that's actually the beauty, that they are really a team, an A-team, where everyone has their own added value. And I think it's the role of the moderator to get the best out of everyone once the discussion is evolving. So in my opinion, all members are important and should be treated as VIPs, right? Well, not quite, because some members are also allowed backstage. And in our community, a VIP is someone that just receives a bit more rights and permissions compared to the others. They have really deserved it, and for that they get a sneak peek behind the scenes. So everyone is important, no discussion about that, but some people are becoming a co-owner of the community and just have an all areas pass. In other words, they are not very important participants, but very involved participants. They are the ones that think about a community more often, they log in more often, and feel as if they are the co-owner of the community. Now the question is, how can we turn a regular participant into a very involved participant? Probably participants like the community leader and the insightful initiator will be a bit more involved. But this doesn't have to be the case, because others can also become more involved when they are challenged in the right way. So who is up for this challenge, and what really challenges them to feel the need to become a co-owner? Okay, so we have, until now we have identified 3 types of challenges to identify VIPs in the community. And we relate those challenges to the tasks of the researcher. We give them 3 different thinking hats that they can put on. And the first thinking hat is that of a moderator, the second of the analyst, and the third of a reporter. All right, so the first one is about co-moderation, where participants become a moderator. Well, where did this idea come from? Well, if you ever worked with a community before, you might recognize this, because after an introductory period on the community, you start noticing that we have gained the trust of participants, and they start knowing their way around on the community. They can start their own discussions, and they talk more freely about what they like to discuss. And it's really cool, because even members that were not familiar with communities before start learning their way around, how a community works, what the role of the moderator is, and what is expected of them. So without introducing the official role of a co-moderator, we can already see some members start behaving as a co-moderator. And they do that by asking questions or raising general issues. And I did a short analysis, and in 80% of the communities that we run, I saw that this spontaneous or this natural moderator behavior is visible in the off-topic rooms, so in the rooms where they can start their own discussions. So that's very cool to see, and then they start discussions about, I don't know, what their favorite brand is, or what new product ideas could be for the brand. And that's very interesting for the end goal of the community and for the research goal. So you see that there's a potential for empowering participants to be part of the research team and become such a co-moderator. But who are they, and who is up for such challenge? Well, we did a second study with the University of Maastricht to identify these profiles, because we wanted to know more about this role. And the main finding of this research is that co-moderators, they show a higher level of engagement in communities compared to other members. And we also found that these co-moderators spend on average 2 times more time on the community. It can even mean, or the average is around 11 hours per week. Can you imagine? They spend a lot of time on these communities. And they also check the status of the community several times per day. So it's really part of their routine. Very interesting. Then in terms of language, people who take up the role of such a co-moderator have a more of a social attitude to the other members, and they use more social function words like we in their language than the other members do. What else did we find? Well, when we look at the personality, it shows that this person is scoring higher on self-efficacy and is better well-organized and more open-minded. Okay, so another question that we had was, why should we do this? And I'm sorry up front for the boring graph in this presentation, but I think it's such a very interesting insight and finding, so I really want to show it to you. What did we find out? Well, we see that working with a co-moderator strengthens the constructive interaction within online communities. So it actually doubles the interactions that we have within a community. So when a peer asks a question, you see that it gives more of a discussion and interaction compared to the member. Depending on the type of the topic, it can lead up to 16% more sophisticated insights. And that's also a very important argument to start working with these co-moderators. Another finding is that these roles actually complement the role of the moderator in a community. So that's also a very important one, because at a certain point we were asking ourselves, like, okay, these co-moderators, can they fully take over our responsibility as a researcher, or do we still need to moderate the community? And luckily we still have a job because we actually complement one another. While moderators are favorable for gaining more new and broad insights, co-moderators can foster the constructive interaction, and they have more deeper insights. So this is also a form of triangulation, where you improve the validity of the data and of the research, because different people are involved and each of them ask different types of questions, which result in insights that otherwise you wouldn't have found before. So that's also a very important benefit of working with a co-moderator. It doubles the interaction, and it can give you up to 16% new insights that otherwise you wouldn't have found before. Let me give you an example of a case where we worked with such a co-moderator, and it's called the Come Dine With Me community, which we set up for Campbell's in Australia. And here we invited 50 food mavens that all shared a strong interest in cooking to explore with us new food trends. And the co-moderator that best completed our co-moderator challenge is Jaco here on the photo. And he was encouraged by us to start discussions, moderate them, summarize them, and also report back to the moderator. Now, one of the hot topics was about his treasure, his veggie garden, and he proudly showed his garden and asked other members for tips what to do when the harvest becomes too much. That's obviously a problem when you have such a big garden. Well, these questions were not part of our research guide, but we thought it was still very interesting to see how members love this organic approach and share a passion for this. So we also asked him how he experienced this role of the co-moderator. And as you can see, he really enjoyed it. And also the efforts that we got from this community and from other communities. We see that the co-moderator take their role very seriously, and that, that they feel that they can have impact. So that's a good thing. Co-moderators become more engaged by taking on this role. Okay, so let me quickly finish on the co-moderators. How can we collaborate with them? Well, here my recommendations are challenge them to start their own discussions, start asking them additional questions in the moderator discussions, and give them recognition for taking on this role, for example, by giving them the co-moderator badge. So there are two other challenges to identify your VIPs in your community, which are that of an analyst, where they help you to interpret the data, and that of a co-reporter, where they challenge you on your conclusions and help you to fine-tune your report. But in terms of timings, we will skip these parts. And let me move to the conclusions. So what I would like to give you as the takeaways of this presentation is, first, think about how to get the most out of your members. Though you recruited the same profile, they act differently in a thread. So think about that as a moderator to get the most out of them. The second takeaway is that all members are equally important. Not everyone can be a community leader, but it's really the group dynamic that gives the best results. And the third takeaway is give your members the challenge to become a very involved participant or a VIP, like a co-researcher, because it can really improve the quality of your results in terms of moderation, in terms of analysis, and in terms of reporting. And that also leads to more engagement, both in the short term and in the long run. Thank you for listening, and I am happy to answer any questions.